Right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Claire Fenello. I'm the Executive Director at EVCOM. Welcome to you all to this afternoon's EVCOM session, which is looking at leadership today. Before I hand you over to our facilitators and leaders of the session, could I just suggest that you keep your microphones turned off, but if you're happy to show your faces, that's really helpful to the facilitators. Just to repeat, as I do every week, these sessions are recorded and they will be available on our website from tomorrow lunchtime. Alongside which there will be some additional resources and pieces of information that we include in support of the session. Also, moving forward, we're hoping to continue doing sessions once a week for the foreseeable future. So if you have any ideas and any suggestions, please do let us know. They're all welcome and we assess them all. We aim to finish at 4:45 and we will run over a couple of minutes if it's looking that way, but we do try very hard to stick to the timetable. So without any further ado, I'd like to just welcome our facilitators. So we have Sharon Baker from Fly, Don't Walk. Sharon worked in TV, film and event agencies for over 20 years before becoming a leadership coach, and now uses her experience to help agency leaders and leadership teams gain clarity and focus to become even more effective, inspiring and innovative. She is also a conceptual artist and studies psychology, so combines a creative and scientific approach, which clients say has helped to transform their agencies. Hello, Sharon. And then our other facilitator is Lucy Thompson from Quest Perspective.
Okay, nobody can see.
Lucy brings over 20 years operational and strategic leadership experience as she coaches senior leaders and teams. She's passionate about seeing people fulfill their potential and is equipped to coach client development to generate inspiring and practical leadership skills. Throughout her career, Lucy has had a reputation for her ability to build connection and trust through her relationships, aiding mobility and breakthrough for her clients. So a lot of experience in the room. Please welcome Lucy and Sharon. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Claire. Note to self to have a shorter introduction, really.
I thought the same.
Thank you very much for that. It seemed like a long time. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. It's lovely to see some faces, actually, and nice to be back with this feels like my home ground. So it's really nice to be here. So this session is to help you all advance your thinking, really, about the reintegration of the team. So whenever and whatever that looks like. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to have an interactive session here. So we really want to hear from you so that we can share with the group. We ran this on Friday and it worked so well that people shared their ideas and their thoughts on what they were doing. And it really helps to move thinking on. So we'll be looking at the challenges, at the impacts that reintegration is going to have, what the opportunities are, and the consequences actually of the change in our business models, because I think there's a lot going on. So I wanted just very quickly to have a look at this from from an alien's point of view. So this is truly unprecedented, I think. So some people, when we come back into the office, are going to will have been out of the organisation for 6 months. And some people have been working really hard all the way through, and sadly some people won't be coming back at all. So when the team actually gets back together, they're going to be in a slightly different landscape, that business models may have changed, clients may have changed. There's going to be quite a lot of change, and also possibly a phased integration. So what we're hoping is that this session is going to give you an opportunity to really do some thinking so that you can make sure that your team, when they come back, are stable and motivated and empowered and really ready to take the agency well into the recovery period. So I just wanted to look at what some of the impacts are of how you make the decision to bring the team together, really. So Amelia, this is the first slide. So the ones that I've looked at are global uncertainty. So it's clear now that this is going to go on for some time, and until we obviously get control over the virus, the behavior of clients and their consumers is going to be unpredictable, which means that we can't forecast, and our work is going to be unpredictable. So the second one is well-being. So obviously this has been paramount. So health and safety has been paramount, and rightly so. And this will continue again for as long as we don't have any control over the virus. Communication, how you've communicated with the teams while they've been furloughed and while they've been working from home will to some extent dictate how they come back into the workplace. And also it seems that communication has been sort of changing quite a lot. There's been a lot of consultation and collaboration with employees, and that is really important as well when they come back. Adaptations for employees, and what I mean by this is that although we've been on the collaborative corona coaster, people have different attitudes to how they want to work, and so we have to then take that into account. And it's about their domestic situation, how they want to travel, you know, how happy are they working from home, their emotions when they come back. So there are lots of things that I think we have to take into account when people do come back. Varying experiences. I mean, I think for some people this has been an amazing time. You know, it's been very creative, it's been quite energizing. We've changed things in 3 months that would have taken 3 years to do probably before. And for others, it would have been a very sort of anxious time, a very unstable time. So just really acknowledging that people have gone through very different experiences in this, and how that impacts the team when they come back. And the psychological impact of the crisis. I want to share with you a slide that comes from a Harvard Business Review article, which I think puts beautifully the psychological aspect of the crisis. So Amelia, if you could sort of do the next slide. And it looks at 3 phases. So the emergency phase, that's everyone getting together and sort of being galvanized. Regression, going through a slump. I feel like I've already been through that and I'm just coming into recovery, but you know, you realize this is the long haul. Might get a little bit tired, or definitely tired. Unfocused, and then into recovery. So, okay, we now have to really start bringing this together, looking long-term, revising our goals, our expectations, and roles going forward. So before we get into the interactive part, I just wanted to share a couple of slides that were done by, which show you some research that were done by an agency looking at I think 250 Marcoms agencies. So the next slide looks at how people working from home have been impacted. So I think 72% is actually quite good in terms of the 28% were in a really bad mental health place. But I think the really important stat here is the one that says 66% of those aged 25 and under have been suffering from one or more signs of mental ill health. And it's quite clear that the younger generation have been impacted more than the older generation. And also the reservations about returning to the office, and obviously the sort of disconnection. Lots of people felt disconnected. Now that 57% about communication is a little bit misleading, because actually 41% said that the communication was good enough. So actually I think agencies have been doing quite well. So the next slide actually looks at furloughed employees. And I just wanted, hopefully you can read this, but there are a few things here just to take note of, I think, in terms of bringing people back. And one of those is their mental health has been worse, obviously, than people working from home. There's been more anxiety, obviously fear about recession, fear about losing their jobs. Work-life balance has been a bit more difficult. And again, in well-being, 1 in 3 have been struggling. and found it hard to focus. That's not surprising, had a lack of routine and purpose, and felt really isolated from the team. So I think those two slides just give us a little picture of where employees have been and how they might be arriving back in the office whenever that happens. So I'm going to pass it over to Lucy now, and we're going to just do some polls with you so that you can share with each other where you are at the moment. So introducing my lovely colleague, Lucy.
Thank you, Sharon. Excellent. So we're going to run some polls because we think it'd be really helpful for you to perhaps get a bit of a sense of what you're doing in your organisations and what others are doing as well. So Sharon, can you bring up the first poll, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. So the question that we would really like to explore is what percentage of employees have been furloughed as of today. So if you can click into what your experience is in your organisation, that would be fantastic. Thank you for your quick responses. Let's have a look. Couple more maybe, possibly those that entered a bit later won't be able to. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so that's so let's have a look at the results of that. So what percentage of our employees are furloughed? So we're seeing that in all organizations, we're not in a place where everybody's furloughed, that's obvious, but to think that over a third of people have got 60% of their organization out furloughed as of today, with a fairly and sharply followed by 20% and then 40%. So it's a really significant range of our employees are out of the business in an active capacity as of today. Okay, so let's hold that thought, and Sharon, if you can run the second one, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Can you see that?
Okay, so what's the timeline for bringing people back as things stand today? What are your views and thoughts around that? Accepting that for some people you may not really know, but for others you may have a bit of a sense. Brilliant, thank you. So let's share the results of this one. Okay, so the timeline for bringing people back, certainly not this side of the beginning of August. Is really clear message there. With, in fairness, over a third of you that filled that out, 82% of you filled out that questionnaire. So over a third of you actually not knowing at this stage, and I think it really what's going on, waiting for the next announcements from the government, really reinforces the risk there. So I think it'd be perhaps interesting as we open up our discussion just to explore what some of those things are when you're thinking about it. But what's clear there is that there's a real mixture. Let's have a look at the third poll, please, Sharon. This is the last one, guys, before you get poll heavy. So what are the top 3 considerations in the decision for how to bring people back? So we've given you a multiple choice here, and if you scroll down, there are quite a number of choices beyond my screen, certainly maybe yours. So three choices to pick here as you start to consider how to bring people back. Go for it. Thank you. Okay, just a few more seconds. Brilliant. Thank you, Sharon. Let's see the results of that, please.
Okay. It's interesting.
Okay, hopefully appearing on the. So let's have a look. So quite a dominant theme there around pipeline forecast and our current workload, with 92% citing that up there. And then a significant drop off to then think about function and skill set of our team alongside government guidelines. So thank you for that. Some really significant thoughts there. Brilliant. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, so let's stop sharing those. So we're really keen to be able to have a bit of a conversation now, and I'd really welcome this opening up at this point, and we've got some questions to explore together. So I'd love to see your faces and the opportunity to come off mute as you're ready to interact and share your perspectives. I think Sharon and I have been talking a lot about the whole area of the reintegration of teams, and recognising that the longer this goes on, the more around.
Okay, Lucy,
bringing people back.
Lucy, we've lost you a bit. Are other people hearing her, or is it just me? You're not hearing her either. Lucy?
Yes, I'm absolutely here.
Brilliant. Okay, would you just mind saying that again? We just missed that.
So sorry. Okay, there's a flat moment there in the signal. I'm so sorry.
Okay, it's still not back. Lucy, shall I just take over this little bit, because we're still not.
Yeah.
Unless you turn your picture off, and just try. Oh, Claire, you've got you're muted. Ooh, okay.
Sharon, can you just take over, Sharon, at this point, just so we can move it along? Thank you.
Okay, so what we thought we'd ask you to do is just to share with us what workplace adjustments you're making. On Friday, it was clear that some of the workspaces were completely changing. Working from home obviously was changing. But what sort of adjustments are you making for when people are going to come back? So would anyone like to share what their workplace is doing at the moment? Shall I ask someone? I'm sorry, I don't want to actually. Jan, can I ask you? Would you mind just sharing?
Yeah, fine. I think it's just all the working from home thing. I think will continue for quite a while, and I think it's just kind of you return to the office. I think it's only if there is a real need, if I need to prepare for something, or need to plan anything for an event, need to be physically in one space. But other than that, for now, we're just kind of recommending to everybody to work from home because it works generally, and people are accustomed to that now. And I don't think for the next couple of months it's going to change. So I think unless there really is a need, people will just continue to work from home, but the office is available if they need it. That's how we kind of place it right now.
And are you keeping your office as it is? Because we've heard people sort of changing their structure completely and saying having a clubhouse rather than office, that people can come in and out. I mean, it sounds great, doesn't it? Rather than actually keeping the office as it was, so that people would almost have to book to come in. How are you doing it?
That I think is probably more like a long-term plan that we haven't looked at yet. The whole non-hot desking thing will, I think, destroy that thought for the next couple of months, I think. And then after that, I don't think we looked at that far ahead yet. We always had quite a flexible working policy anyway in regards to where you're based and where you sit and hot desking and all that. But that I think we can only really look at once we're in a safe space again and people can kind of move around as such.
Yeah, absolutely. Would anyone else like to share? Dean, I know you've got your camera and Joe, would you like to?
All I say is I think we're kind of thinking in the same way. So at the moment, working from home is 100% working. Obviously, shoots are sort of starting at the moment, so there is a need to go in for those, and we're doing that in a safe way as much as we obviously avoiding public transport as much as possible at the moment. Longer term, I think we are going to change how our office is. That's still under discussion at the moment, but I can't see us going back to how it was before any point in the near term, middle term, or even long term, actually, because it's kind of fundamentally changed everybody's attitudes towards office and not office. And I think there is discussions at the moment about looking at maybe 2 days in the office, but only really if it's needed, and also making sure that we don't have more than a certain amount of people in the space at the time, because, you know, we don't have a massive office. So we need to make sure that we're able to, if we still need to by that point, distance in the office. But yeah, we're trying to plan ahead, but we're still trying to react to, you know, the next change and the next change. It still all feels a bit like the floor's moving underneath us half the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, some of us in March thought, oh, it'll be 3 months and then we'll be back, but it's not quite happening like that, is it? It's still shifting. Yeah. Lucy, do chip in, sweetheart, when you can. We'll probably get you back. We don't want to lose you. But I do, Dean, thank you for putting your camera on. Hi, hope you're well. Would you mind sharing what you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Hope you're well. So I've got kids and cats on the rampage here, which is why I have my camera off. So
we'll forgive you.
Yeah, no, they've all gone out for a walk. Well, not the cats, but the kids have. So yeah, kind of the same as what Joe was saying, really. That we're just starting to think at the moment about how we can get back into the office. I think strangely, we're sort of coming at it from a slightly different angle, which is that actually a lot of us are quite keen to get back to the office, partly from a logistical point of view. We've got a real mix of ages and circumstances within the business, people with kids like myself, but also, you know, 20-somethings who are living in a house share and have had to work on a shonky, you know, sort of setup at home. You know, obviously we've provided the kit that we can, but obviously people don't necessarily have the space for us to transport a desk, a chair, a second monitor, and things like that to their home. But related to that as well, I mean, I think I've been really interested in the well-being side of this that you mentioned earlier, that actually I think there's a huge benefit from the sort of collegiate side of being together, basically, both from a working process point of view. You know, we've found that the communication side of things has been tricky sometimes, particularly when we're having to work quickly on creative projects, and stuff gets missed because, you know, a side conversation goes on over here, or there's not quite the easy collaboration that we'd had before in terms of just being able to walk over to somebody and go, what do you think of this, or whatever. So I agree with what you were saying, Jan, though. You know, the hot desking thing, though, I think is just really problematic, you know, from a safety point of view. So we're just trying to look at our office space at the moment in terms of how we can potentially make it work for us. You know, the biggest challenge, I think, though, is, I think you mentioned this as well, Joe, is transport. That seems to be the biggest risk factor that we've come up against. We have people who have no other way of getting into the office other than getting on a very crowded tube line or a train line. It's just not feasible for them to walk or cycle or get a bus or drive and things like that. So yeah, I think the transport thing seems to be the main barrier that we've identified at the moment. But that aside, there seems to be a real desire to come back to the office.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Lucy, have you got anything to?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting to notice the difference between what drives the physical integration around people's desire to be together versus the safety risks that people are bouncing up, plus the very practical stuff around I haven't got enough space to concentrate on the job at home, and I've done it because I've had to, and I can't wait to get back to the office and start doing.
Oh.
So I think I'm noticing is that you have an awareness of your different employees' thoughts and thinking, and actually one of the conversations that Sharon and I've been having is around the how are you involving the team in making decisions and being part of the decisions around what comes next, and what are you doing really intentionally to help their onboarding with the how to move forward as an organisation with this next bit. So thinking about the recovery phase, that psychological phase that Sharon was referring to. I wonder whether we could sort of move from exploring the physical reintegration to thinking about the strategic reintegration. And I'm curious to hear what has worked for your teams in the last couple of months that you are really keen to protect as you start to think about reintegration. So what has really worked for the team that you would like to protect?
Drinking.
Like to share? Drinking, Dean.
Drinking, yeah.
I'm not sure that you lemon and ginger tea, but maybe you do.
But no, just scheduled drinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a team, do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's something, as daft as it sounds, it's something that we were always struggling to do as a team, to do nights out and things like that. And strangely, the thing that we ended up doing more regularly was having lunch together. We're lucky that we've got quite a nice big kitchen in the office, and so we'd fallen into this thing of doing like a team lunch thing quite regularly, but never managing to do the drinks thing. Whereas with Zoom, there's just this recurring thing in the diary, Thursday beers, and okay, we've all got a limited amount of stuff to do at the moment, so but it's actually been really, really good. So, and in terms of listening to the team, that's the kind of stuff I've been hearing, is that actually people like the fact that there's just this recurring thing in the diary, show up or don't show up, but we don't debate it, we don't have a big discussion about whether it happens or not, it just either happens or it doesn't, basically, which is quite interesting.
And I think one of the massive things about working from home, because people have felt a little disconnected if you don't get that opportunity to all be together, but building in those little informal times, because you're not walking past people's desk anymore to see how they are. So building in those informal catch-ups, I think, is super important in the community, and keeping the sort of the culture going as well.
Yeah, I know it seems a simple thing, but we just never thought about structuring it in that way. It felt too formal to structure it in that way, but I think that is absolutely something we'd probably carry with us back to the office, for sure.
Yeah. What I'm interested in as well is the sort of because people are talking about there's more trust now. People are working from home and it works, and that there is trust built up between employers and employees. I mean, what do people think about that? And does anyone have any thoughts?
I think it's just there might also be the current worry about the work situation, everything, but I think people just adapted to it and they're becoming more proactive and self-driven. I think that's one thing that we definitely noticed with people who haven't been furloughed. They're kind of really driving their role, and they're looking for opportunities, and just a lot more, self-driven, or being able to work independently because they don't have a support structure around them, like people they can just quickly check things with, but they seem to thrive on that. So that's something that's definitely a benefit, and I think what you said is exactly right. I think that's always the how many days a week can we let people work from home without the whole system collapsing? It won't collapse. It actually works, and I think that's quite nice right now to see. Actually, you can continue with that and then be more flexible as a company in the future. That's definitely something we're looking at as well.
Exciting. That's exciting, actually, isn't it, to hear that? Claire?
I would say the same, is that over the years I have often worked from home, but never full-time all week, but I've often worked from home 3 days a week. And I was always fascinated by the fact that there was that element of trust. And I used to think, well, I'm being paid to do that job. If I don't do it, I don't get paid. And I think this has been a great leveler, because it has just proven that if you're hiring the right people and your people are committed to the company they work for, they'll work from home. It's not it is not the problem that I think a lot of companies felt it was. So this has been a game changer.
Yeah.
And I really think it's going to have a fundamental effect on the way businesses are structured going forward, and how people learn to work together. You know, and then they'll really, I do think you won't lose that need for people to get together, but they will value that a lot, and make the most of those opportunities when they're sort of built into the structure of their work. But you know, I think working from home for people who can and want to, whereas before it was a struggle to get that approved by someone, now I think it'll be almost a given that if you prove you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
The idea that we would measure output rather than hours, I think this time has really broken the back of that, hasn't it? The idea that we would really look at that in a different way, and therefore the benefits of the Thursday beers, where you know that informal time for a bit of a catch up is going to be in there as well, gives you a sweet spot. Is there anything else that people just want to call out that they would like to protect before we perhaps move on to a different question? Joe, hi.
All I'd say is that I think, although we've always been quite a close company, I think we've had more real conversations in the last couple of months, actual conversations, honest conversations about how we're feeling, what's going on, the struggle, the kind of balancing act that everybody does, no matter what kind of your life is out of work. There's always kind of, you have to put that aside to do that, or that aside to do that, and actually being very honest about those conversations. I think we should hold on to that, definitely.
Have you got a sense of how you will, what will be the mechanism to shore up that honesty and openness? Well,
I think as leaders, we continue to be honest about what we're doing, which kind of gives everybody else the okay to do it as well.
Yeah. I'm a great believer in that sense of how the behaviours that we model encourage those behaviours back from our teams. So whether it's the dog barking, the kids in the background, the fact that actually I just need 10 minutes, people, then there's something very human about that, which perhaps we've not given ourselves permission for in the past.
And I'd say, being, obviously I don't know most of the people here, but a couple of weeks ago I had a really bad week. I was just not happy at all for a whole week, crying for no reason, and really honest, told like my two bosses, and then told my team, and stopped working for a bit, and then felt much better. So to kind of, because I would want everybody else to be able to do that as well. I wouldn't want someone to have to struggle through it and soldier on. You just got to be honest and tell everybody what's going on. So
you know what, I think, sorry Lisa.
I was going to say, the purpose of exploring that question is about thinking about, as we reintegrate and emerge from this, how do we not look back in this time and years time think, when we did have Thursday beers and we talked properly to each other, we don't do that anymore, isn't it? And there's something about, as the reintegration, how do we take those things with us into our organisation and say that's who we are now? Does that make sense? Go on, Sharon.
Joe, I think that's a really important point about, it's been okay to not be okay, in the workplace, and we've been able to bring our emotions in more, which I think is incredible, to really take that forward as being open and honest, which of course in the work that I do, I see that has a massive impact on how much people can feed back to each other, how honest they are with the communication. And the other thing that I've seen as well is that that employees are being consulted more. So there's more of a two-way communication. And it comes into your wellbeing point, I think, Dean, as well, that, wellbeing is so important that you have to consult and collaborate more in the communication as well. Yeah. Lovely. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
Me again, sorry, I'm so interested, I'm joining in. I think one of the things in that communication thing, I think as well, is that the leaders have been open about not having the answers, and just admitting it, and kind of going, because we're all being thrown into the same thing, that is incredibly unusual. So, to be able to just put your hand up and go, no, I don't know, I just don't know what we're going to do about that. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to let it sit for a week. And if you have a good idea, you let me know. But otherwise, we'll talk about it next week. Because, you sit there and you think, I really don't know how to fix that thing. Because I've never been presented with that problem before. But I'll Whereas, you know, before we might have skated over it a little bit, paddling frantically, thinking they won't notice and I'll come up with a problem and it'll all be all right. Whereas now there's too many problems. I'll just put that one on one side and move over here with the things I can fix. And just sharing that makes a big difference, because then it empowers somebody to kind of go, well, why don't we just try this? And somebody, you know, they pipe up with the solution possibly.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. I think it gives people the opportunity to input much more, and you know, they're open to input that because everyone's in the same boat. Yeah, great. Can I just ask people what challenges you think you see in the reintegration? Just imagining sort of when we do come back, you know, what are the main challenges with that whole piece, do we think?
I think from our side, it's just I think a lot of the people who've been furloughed are maybe younger members of the team or like newer members of the team, and to get them back in and with training needs, and maybe, you know, they might have lost like 2, 3 or 4 months of work experience and development. So I think that would be one of the main focus points in regards to kind of restarting training and onboarding a little bit, depending on their experience. So that will definitely be a key factor.
Yeah, it's a long time to be out of the business, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got a big group of people as well, and also I think this disparate two groups of people who are in different places. So I think the sort of the dynamics there as well. I mean, what I've been hearing is that people, especially the younger ones, are really desperate to get back into the office. But I do think it's a sort of thing that is really good to address and be very open about those different experiences before you come in, so that it doesn't lead to any sort of long-term feelings, you know, going underneath that aren't addressed. Yeah. Anyone else sort of would like to?
I think a lot of the potential for, I mean, we've got a very, very large team, and 50% of them, over 50% has been furloughed. And like Dean, we have happy hours, we've got WhatsApp groups, we've got everything keeping everybody all connected. But I think there's very much this whole fear of missing out from those people who are on furlough versus the people who are still in the business. And also that fear of jealousy not only from those people who haven't been working, but jealousy from the people that have been working. And when people come back and it's like, oh, it's so difficult, you know, I now have to work an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day. And it's like, well, hang on a second. We've been doing it for the past goodness knows how long. There's going to be a really big seesaw from that side. So, yeah, that's kind of what I can kind of potentially see happening on that.
Absolutely. And I've been hearing that employers have been asking people to take holiday while they're on furlough. And there's been a bit of a kickback, you know, to that. And then, of course, the view of the people who've been working full time. I think potentially, unless you address it head on, I think it's potentially a bit of a destabilizer, that one. Peter, do you have any?
How do you fix it, though?
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
How do you get around that one? Because it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and my answer to that is that you know, the openness and the honesty that leaders have been showing, and that people now have a bit more to open up about emotions. It's about creating a space where people can do that. And have the tools to be able to do that. I think being open about it and seeing that there is potential there for those emotions to have an impact on the team. It's addressing it head on, and I would say in an environment that is set up to do that. You know, so creating a space for that.
Yeah, I think the other thing is about trying to create a space, if it doesn't already exist, to allow non-furloughed and furloughed people to be together. because I think initially when it looked like it might feel like it was a short-term thing, there was a bit of jealousy for the furloughed people that might have been off being paid, and it felt quite comfortable, and they were having this paid holiday, and lucky them. But actually, I don't think there are many people that are really jealous of the furloughed now because it's going on so long, and that has generated some real heartache and uncertainty and real challenges. I think the truth is now there's been pluses and minuses to groups of people. Neither generally chose the position that they're in, and I think there's something about being really real and really open. So I think that the opportunity to bring those groups together and explore some of that challenge and some of that pain, and to put it on the table, acknowledge it and give it a voice, and to be able to face into it together, as part of believing that you're allowing people to see the other perspective, and it hasn't been all rosy for one group versus the other. Peter, I've noticed your mute has come off. I'm really keen to give you an opportunity to share.
Okay, I think I've got a number of things really whizzing around in my head after the conversation that's happened this afternoon. I think camaraderie is the thing that people are missing. And however much you do on Zoom and have Thursday evening drinks and all that kind of stuff, it is not the same as being in the same room. And I think that as soon as people can actually get back to actually being in the same, I think a lot of people want to get back to being in the same space, because being at work is part of your tribe. The people that you work with are part of your tribe. And actually you have that social interaction. And I think we're talking about kind of things that, well, it works, working from home can work. I'm not 100% convinced that in some ways working from home doesn't work. We sit on calls looking into the air, we don't have any body language, we can't read what's going on. Those semiotics are really important, especially in a creative industry. If you want a creative environment where people are going to collaborate, come up with solutions, and solutions that will move the business forward, not necessarily client creative solutions, then that's going to demand that actually basically we get into a face-to-face situation before that can actually happen. And I understand that we might be a year down the road. I'm not saying it's, one forces it, one has to work safely, but I think we're missing a lot by not having that close social interaction. And I think that in terms of working for our clients, not me working for my clients, but actually agencies working for their clients, I think there's a massive problem in terms of everybody's jumping on the webinar bandwagon and saying we can do all this remote, we can have all these clever bits of technology, that we can collaborate. It is not like being in the same room. It is not like being actually in a structured, facilitated environment where you can read the language and hear the buzz of what's going on in the room. I think we're a long way from that, but I think rather than that, we can focus on actually the things that work now, but I think we have to also focus on the things that are not working now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really fair. And I suppose I'm conscious of the time and just starting to begin to draw us to a conclusion, but I think there's something about recognizing things that we want to protect, the things, Peter, that you're alluding to, that, oh my goodness, we knew that was important, and by golly has this time not really reinforced that. So when we start to think about that time that we do have when we're face to face, how do we shape what that looks like, particularly in this where the reality is we're going to have an element of social distancing for some time. So how do we make the time that we can be physically together in the room really, really count? So I guess what we've been looking to explore is the challenge between some of the positives that we've been through, as well as some of the challenges, and how the reintegration phase is just that. It's a phase. Going back to that poll right at the beginning where we're looking at the fact that people are going to be coming back over quite an extended period of time. And there are really big questions around pipeline and demand going on around there that will really shape the timescale and the way that looks. Sharon, do you want to?
Well, no, I think that was a great summing up. I think it's a very, very complex subject, and something that will play out over quite a long time, actually. And I'd love to sort of do this again and explore it in a little bit more depth, because I think I think the important thing is to actually sort of look into the future and look at what the consequences of some of what's going on now might have, so that you can prepare for that. Yeah, so I think it's very interesting. I'd like to say, we're at time now, but I'd like to say to anyone that if you'd like we've been doing quite a lot of research and come across a couple of fantastic articles actually that are very useful. So if you'd like to receive those, just put your email in the chat box. And Lucy and I are also offering anyone on this call a free 1-hour consultation that you can have our expertise in how to work out exactly sort of how you might prepare for the reintegration and what your challenges are and what you can actually do. So if you'd like that, put your name in the chat box and we'll get in touch with you. But this is thank you so much to everyone for contributing. It's really lovely. I thought it was a fascinating conversation, and there's lots more there. So yeah, happy to do it again, Claire, if that works out for you guys.
Well, thank you both very much indeed. Yes, and I found it so interesting I couldn't keep myself out of it. So there you go. So from EVCOM, I mean, we one of the things that we do are these sort of small, quite intimate events where we invite our members and their opportunities to learn and get to know their fellow members, and we miss all that. I joined EVCOM in January, and I feel like I haven't really got to know our members yet. I'm trying to do it online, and it's not the same. I'm missing my vodka martini in a fancy hotel, and I'm missing my half a cider at the pub. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity that the business we're in, as Peter sort of rightly pointed out, there is a camaraderie in everything we do. The event sector, the film business, it's all about people and collaborating and working together. And I think that's how we've made it work, working from home, because it's in our nature to make it work. But I think we are all very much looking forward to being able to be in the moment and alongside, shoulder to shoulder with our colleagues. So we shall cross fingers that it won't be too much longer. But in the meantime, we shall continue to put out webinars right through June and to the end of July. There'll be once a week. Then we're pausing for August, and then we'll get back to you with an autumn schedule. But thank you all very much once again, and a reminder that this will all be available on our website tomorrow. We hope to see you again. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much.